This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
A very, very good morning to all of our viewers worldwide. We are on and beyond Ngala, and we have just got this beautiful, beautiful scene of this male lion walking through the morning mist. We managed to find him quite early on, and we've just been following him for the last 15 minutes. And without further ado, a very warm welcome to your very own live safari from the African bush. Look at the mist in the background. That's mist that's rising from the river. And this male lion has just crossed the river, and he's walking with his head down. Looks like he's smelling the scent of what could be the rest of the pride that he's trying to find. Look at him. See if you can listen. He's just been spotted by some impala, and they're alarm calling. So he's just paused. He might be trying to assess whether the impalas have seen him, or if maybe there's another predator around. And just look at how full that belly is. A bit of scrape marking. Critter freak, this is such a regal creature, and I think the whole scenery this morning is just amplifying it. I mean, with this mist, the trees, it just makes it so much more dramatic. And he's definitely on the scent of something. It must be, I would imagine, the rest of the pride. He's just having a quick little look at the impala. And he's just disappearing behind the bush, so let me see if I can try and reposition again. And to make things even better, we've got the sun that looks like it's threatening to peer just above the clouds. So we could have him and the sunrise in the same shot. That would just be the best way to start. Another quick little pause. And another one. Okay, let me reposition one more time. There's no better way to start off like this. So whilst we try and get into a good position and see if we can get that beautiful shot of him with the sunrise behind us, Lauren has got one of the tallest animals out there, so let's go and say good morning to her.
Good morning everyone, and welcome to Djuma Game Reserve. We are admiring this gorgeous male giraffe here, who was actually standing on top of a termite mound. It was ridiculous, as if he's not already tall enough. My name is Lauren. I do have Theo on camera today, and a giraffe on a termite mound was more like a brachiosaurus than it was an actual giraffe. But he's climbed down from the termite mound and watching us. Very curious male giraffe. Now it's slightly chilly and misty here in Djuma this morning at least, and the temperatures are 13 degrees Celsius and 55 degrees Fahrenheit. But I think the sun will burn through.
We've just found the rest of the pride. Listen. No ways. Can you believe it? And so those impalas probably weren't alarm calling at him, but they were probably alarm calling at the rest of the pride. And that was just the most incredible thing to experience. So far, I've just seen this one female who's off to the right of the vehicle, but the rest are, oh, there we go, up ahead. It's actually making it quite difficult to spot them because of the mist that we have this morning. But they're lying in the mist. One's up and walking away from us. Go more left. Okay, zoom in, dead center. There we go. There we go. And look at that one. That one's got its head up and it's looking straight down towards those impalas. And I mean, those lions were calling and they're not more than 50 meters away from this herd of impala. And these impalas haven't reacted. They are slowly walking away as if it's just a potentially dangerous threat. They're not concerned at all. But I suppose if they're calling, these lions aren't really looking to find their next meal. So these impalas are feeling quite safe. So that one looked like, maybe let's go over there. There's one female and the male that we were following just to the right of us, but the rest of the pride looks like it might be in that mist belt. And the sun is coming up as we speak, so I'll try and get into position quickly if they're moving away from us. Zanzibar Barbarian, I don't think this start could get any better. I mean, and it, well, maybe a little bit better, and I'll show you why now. I'm actually going to do a wide loop around these lions, just so we can try and capture the sunrise. Oh. He's messing with my plans, but we can just wait for him. And then I'll try and reposition. But it does look like it's the rest of the pride, and it looks like the whole pride is all to the left of us now. So as soon as he moves, I'll creep forward and see if I can turn to show you the sunrise that we're experiencing this morning. He's ruining our plans, but look at that, those are the two adults. It's so rare to see them playful with one another these days. Okay, this male lion's really messing with our plans. Let me try. I might just do a loop around the left. It would be awesome if they give us one more roar. Okay, there you go, one. There's the cubs. And I'll try and position in a way where we can see the lions and the sunrise at the same time. I don't know if it will be possible, but I just have to show you how beautiful this is this morning. Here we go. Okay. Okay. Alright, we've got it. Owen has given me the go-ahead that this is the shot that he's looking for. And I mean, all of them are spread out over about maybe about 20 meters. They're up and they're playful. This is just incredible. Moonbeam, if I had to choose between the two, I'd say it would probably benefit the predators more than the prey species, just because it adds that extra bit of cover. And so these lions, at this time of year, in this golden grass with this mist around, will be very difficult to spot. And so it will probably give them a slight advantage.
Good morning and welcome to another exquisite sunrise on Djuma. Listen to those hyena. There's elephants and hyena, all sorts of things going on this morning, and we are so thrilled to share it with you. My name is David Hancock. On camera we have Craig, and let's just take this in. Hyena is really going at it. I hope you can hear him. The birds are coming alive, starting to call and get ready for the day. Spend some time now with these elephants as they move through the bush, munching away. And it sounds like the hyena are excited about something, so all in all, it seems like it's going to be a good morning. Our plan is to work down Zoe's and then head over to Simbambili. See what we can find on that side. Everyone is eagerly awaiting the sun. Such a temperature difference between now and in a couple hours once the sun is high in the sky. And on that note, before you've asked, do animals get cold? And I think they do. Obviously here in South Africa it's not as bitterly cold as it can be in other parts of the world. Especially not up here in the northeast of the country where we are now. But it can get quite chilly in the winter nights, sometimes down to freezing, although not often. But animals are kitted out for that. They're made with everything they need to live out here in the elements. But one does occasionally see noticeable cold on an animal. Perhaps on a very cold winter's morning, you'll notice how lions are just cuddling extra close together out of the wind. But of course, all that hair will keep them a lot warmer than you and I. An elephant, I've never noticed to be cold. I think they generate so much heat with that huge body. If anything, they're actually always hot. That's why they're always fanning their ears and having cool mud baths, looking for the shade. I think they quite enjoy the cooler temperatures. Listen to these elephants as they tussle and jostle those little youngsters there.
this young male is feeding on the remains of something, and we're not entirely sure what it is, but it's something very, very small. It looks like it's a leg bone, but we haven't seen any fur or the hoof to try and work out what it is. But whatever it was way too small to fill up the pride. And so there must have been some sort of scrap over this, and this might just be one of the last remains that this one is stolen, or it may be picked up once the interest was lost by the adults. So I'm thinking, I mean, just because of this area, it could be something like an impala, maybe. And these youngsters have been very active so far. They've been up and greeting every one of the members. Occasionally we see them playing with one another. It does look like they're starting to settle down a little bit more now. And I mean, it must require so much energy calling like that. And it sounded like it was the whole pride that it was giving a go. So the females were roaring. It could have even been the cubs that might have been calling too, just trying it out. And then a couple of the adults are more here on the right-hand side, with the males still on the outskirts of the pride. It makes me think that maybe what happened is that male lion could have left the pride to go off and find something to drink after having such a big feed. And in that time, the pride got up and moved from where he left them. And that's why we saw him his head very low down to the ground, following the scent of the pride until eventually he found them. And what a way to find them, just by them calling so majestically this morning. Granted, it is so stunning, and it sounds like there might be another lion that's trying to start a call. It could be one of the cubs, so I'm going to just keep quiet for a little bit and see if the whole pride follows suit. See, there's one of the adult lionesses stalking one of the juveniles. I'm just going to sit on you just to make sure that you know that I'm more dominant than you. So this lioness has gotten up and moved, and most of the other adult lionesses are facing in the same direction. And so they might carry on moving for a little bit longer. And this is, I mean, maybe leading back to that question earlier about the mist and these predators. You know, this mist will also help everything just remain a little bit cooler for a bit longer. And so it will allow them to move a little bit later on into the morning. But from here, where would they go? Probably not too far. So whilst we figure out whether these lions are wanting to carry on moving for the morning, or if this is a place that they might rest, let's go and see what Lauren's got.
We're just stopping to admire the sunrise. It's quite high in the sky now, but this misty morning is surreal. The mist is very, very thick and it's only just starting to lift. It will eventually dissipate and everything will be clear. But we're just wanting to stop to admire this sunrise and also listen.
Moving it in the air. Just thought we had gotten away from the elephant, but they've encircled us once again. I think this is another splinter group. Actually stopped for a bird of prey, a gymnogene, but it's now flown away, as they tend to do right before the camera hits live. That's still a glorious way to spend the morning with a little herd of elephant. The youngsters are full of beans. They've been wrestling and jostling and pushing each other, practicing for one day when they have to grow up and do it for real. Perhaps two bulls fighting over breeding rights or any number of reasons. So the play fighting will stand them in good stead for their lives ahead. Can't see very well, but it looks like that youngster's having a little drink there, just behind Mom's powerful legs. The surrounding noise from an elephant herd is something incredible. I know you can hear a bit of it in the ambient, but I'll try and describe a bit more of it. It's almost like a hustle and bustle of a city, if you can put it that way. Just in the calm sense of the bush, there's grumbling and rumbling from their communications, their subsonic rumbles that they give off, and then just up to the frequency that we can hear. And there's of course the thrashing of the bush and the cracking of the leaves as they rustle through, and then the snap of a tree as they break a branch or push over a tree. Sounds like a gunshot off in the distance. And perhaps one gets a bit agitated, or the baby gets a bit far from mom. And there'll be a squeal and a trumpeting, and there's just so much that these animals are doing all the time. They're such busy animals. So I love spending time with them. They're always displaying their emotion. Even look at these two youngsters, not too sure about us, giving us a little bit of an eye there. Ears are out. They always approach you slightly aware, or weary one should say. But of course these elephants have been exposed to vehicles many times, so if you sit quietly and give them their space, they'll relax and settle down. Wonder where they've come from, how far they walked. Now, these animals cover huge distances at night. So much to enjoy. It's turning out to be a lovely start to the morning.
Wild Earth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the Wild Earth family.
We are not the only ones who We're also trying to find the pride, apparently. We've just been joined by these two tiny little lion cubs. Their mother and then their uncle, essentially the young male. Oh, that one's got a small little limp. This is just incredible. It almost looks like they're also going to each individual lion and just saying hello to them. And look at how much blood there's on that one face. That is just too adorable. So biltong, for all of the viewers that don't know the backstory, that little lioness there, the white one on the right hand side of the screen, had disappeared from the pride for 7 days, and she was all by herself. She was seen about 20 kilometers away from the pride, contact calling and alone and confused. And we got here one morning and we found miraculously that she had found her way back towards the pride. And for the first couple of days when we were watching her, she was very, very alert, and she basically, as soon as one of the adult lionesses got up and walked, she was the first lion to react, and she got up and she followed, and she literally stuck with one of the adults, and she basically just wouldn't leave the adult's sides. It does now look like she's starting to relax a little bit. I mean, looks like she's got some really good food in her. She's got a nice bloody face, so she ate last night. And so I think her behavior is starting to return to normal. But it would have been such a scary situation for her. I mean, being not abandoned, but being left out in these big open plains with lots of hyenas, other lions, lots of potential threats to her. And she just somehow managed to survive. And the little one's getting harassed by one of the other cubs. And so, yeah, her behavior, I think, it's just, I'm sure she would have gone through quite an emotional roller coaster in that week where she was by herself. And she just didn't want to make sure that it happened again. So she just glued herself to one of the females. And it just, like I say, she seems to be acting like a normal sub-adult lion now. Such a cute picture of that one focusing on what's going on with its sibling and its cousins. It looks like it's thinking it's maybe a bit too rough for it to go and join in with the fun. But it's thinking about it. And the mother and the two cubs with the young male came from a completely different direction. So we were following the dominant male from the right to left, and this lioness with her two cubs popped in basically exactly where that young cub is looking. So straight across, or directly opposite where we're looking now. So now that the whole pride is together, I would imagine that this is probably the place that they'll likely settle down for now. But we'll give it some time and see if there might be a little bit more activity going on this morning.
We are here with a lovely herd of elephants, basking themselves in the warm glow of the winter morning sun, here on a crest at beautiful Pride Lands Conservancy. What a lovely time to be out and about. I'm Mike. Behind the camera we've got Seb. And as I said, you join us here at Eco Training's Pride Lands Conservancy. And we've been bumbling around, dealing with flat tires and all sorts of fun things first thing in the morning. But now we've luckily found some elephants and we're just spending a bit of relaxing time with them, which is super nice. They are busy, well, this particular elephant is busy digging up roots. It's found itself what looks like a sandpaper bush, not a sandpaper raisin, but a sandpaper bush. And it's actually pushing over. It's not a sandpaper bush. It might actually be a giant raisin. But anyway, it's pushing this tree over and digging out the roots. It's literally after the roots. Watch, it's going to push again with its head. Oh, no, it's going to dig with its feet. It has been literally pushing with its forehead this tree over to expose the roots, and then it uses its heel, see this, to dig up the root. And then when it's broken the root with its heel, oh, get out of here, tree, get out of here. You're in my way, I'm trying to eat. It's too cluttered on this breakfast table. It's amazing how they just use their bulk to push into these thickets to get to the stuff that they want. So yes, this elephant's now got a piece of root. You see that? It's got a piece of root and it's pulling it out with its trunk. Oh, thank you everyone. We've dealt with quite a few flat tires in our time, so it wasn't too much of a hassle, but the flat tire was good exercise first thing in the morning. It was cold this morning, so it helped us to warm up. Much like these elephants are doing in the sun now. Look at that root. So the roots are filled with the sugar and juices. Remember, it's winter time now, so the trees are storing all of their nutrients and energy in the roots to save them from drying out. And they've lost all their leaves, so they don't lose moisture. It's very clever how they do this. You know, imagine if you had to use... oh, yeah, that's right. Big success. Oh, but you threw your food away now. What are you going to do? Go and find it. That was funny. Ishwa, aged 6. You are asking if elephants are stronger than rhinos. Ishwa, if an elephant is bigger than a rhino, it's almost certainly stronger. Rhinos are powerful little animals like bush tanks, but they weigh only about half the weight of a normal-sized adult elephant. So an elephant has got a lot of weight behind it, and so with all that weight comes muscle. And so, I mean, both of them are incredibly powerful animals. Rhinos have tough skin and they, fight with their horns, but elephants, especially the bull elephants, do have to fight as well with their tusks, and they are very, very strong. Often elephants and rhinos fight, Ishwa, when they're at water holes, and they fight over the remaining water. And usually elephants come off best. They usually are able to chase the rhinos off, because remember, everything in the bush, everything in nature is to do with whoever's most powerful, and elephants definitely are the top animal when it comes to getting what they want. And this one is, I don't know if you can hear that. There's trees and branches and all sorts being broken by the elephants in the background. They're being very destructive at this time of year, although it's quite normal. As you can see, there's lots of dead branches around here, and all of that is because of elephants. Pridelands has only been part of the Greater Kruger National Park for a couple of years now, and so the elephants are just restoring the balance. There were not elephants here for a long time, so they are just bringing things back to equilibrium. Whilst we watch this elephant playing around in the dirt, we'll send you over to Ngala with some lions playing around with Eric.
These little cubs are getting picked on by these sub-adults. Just seems like they just team up, these sub-adults, against the one little cub. But the one cub is coming in to help its sibling. So you might just see it pop behind the one on the right. There we go. And it's just incredible how small these little lions are. It's amazing to think that only a year and a half ago these lions were the same size. Jackie, that's quite a good question. And I mean, a couple of days ago when this pride of lions was on a buffalo carcass with Nikki, apparently the lioness brought her two cubs in towards the carcass. And they definitely won't participate in the killing of the kill, but at this age, they're probably in the process of starting to switch over to more of a meat-based diet. The only thing is just, I mean, whoever's seen lions before, just look at this light as it's breaking through the mist. It's just becoming incredible. But these lion cubs could get very injured when the lions are fighting for the scraps of a carcass. And so if it's something big enough where they don't really have to compete so much, or if it's right towards the end when everyone's got their feed, you might find she's more inclined to bring them towards the meat. So yeah, I'm sure, I mean, they're feeding on meat and they will be participating every now and again, but they're still just quite vulnerable. I mean, it just takes one little misplaced or misguided slap from one of the adults or one of the males, and that could break the young cub's back. And the female's quite aware of that, and so she'll be quite reluctant to take them right into the feeding frenzy. We've got a stalking lion on the left there, and this is one of the most active sub-adults, and look, she's in the pouncing position. Let's see what she does. Looks like she's focused on that one that we saw feeding on the remains of some sort of carcass that they caught. And there he is. Greybeard, I think these little cubs would probably be super interested in small little things like spur fowls and franklins and these ground-dwelling birds. And so they might spend quite a lot of time trying to hunt one of them, because they're also quite common, so you see them quite regularly. Nowadays, though, I think, the older cubs are probably more interested in the larger food sources. And so these ones are probably expressing, at least the ones in shot, are probably expressing more interest in bigger things like impalas. They might even try and join the adults in on a couple of hunts with the zebras and wildebeest. But it's definitely the small things that rustle in the grass and they kind of hear them before they see them that the young cubs are more interested in. So they'll hear the noises and they might go and try and investigate. So we'll see what's happening. I mean, that one is focused on that young male, but it's not really progressing forward. And I've just noticed that the mother of the young cubs has gotten up and she's walking in the direction of where the young cubs are. And so she might just be making sure that the older sub-adults aren't playing too rough with them. So here she comes. So Sarah, it's also quite an interesting one, and I would say that most other lions will get killed by some sort of predator, whether it be other lions once they've gotten too old and the males can't hold a territory anymore, they'll get chased away and potentially killed. And I mean, if it's a very, very old female, she falls back behind the pride. And before she dies of starvation, what might happen is a group of trailing hyenas, if they see weakness in those lions, they might try and take that opportunity to kill it. I mean, look at this scene. She's walking straight towards us. But I mean, and cubs like this size are super vulnerable to pretty much anything, to lions, leopards, hyenas, snakes even. Sometimes even birds might even target a young lion if they see it by itself. It looks like it's drink time. It was so nice of the mother to come straight towards us. Yeah, and look at how ferociously they're attacking Mum's, I guess, nipples. You can just imagine at this age, those teeth are very, very sharp and very prickly, and so it must be quite sore on the mother. And So you might find, especially if the youngsters are too aggressive sometimes, she might just snap at them and stop them. She occasionally will just hand them off with her back foot, and you just see that back foot coming off, and she'll just plonk it right on their face. Especially, I mean, at mealtime, if there is meat around, their jaws probably aren't strong enough to get as much meat off as the rest of them. And then just with them being so small, they'll be pushed away. So they might nibble on meat every now and again, but this is probably their primary source of nutrition at the moment. Linda, there are some beautiful colors at this time of year. And it's just, I mean, that white that pops out amongst the golden grass, the golden color of the lion themselves. It's just crazy, and it just becomes amplified when the sun breaks through the clouds and just exaggerates all of these colors. So it looks like there was a little tussle over that bone that young male was feeding on, but it seems like he's managed to keep his prize. And so he's probably going to try and feed on it for as long as he possibly can, right up until there's no more meat left.
So this elephant is also feeding as long as possible as it can on this little branch here. So we left the rest of the herd because they were moving away from the road, going into a bit of a thicket. We found this one, and it's doing much the same. It's eating from these dry brush and branches. I'm not sure yet if this is a young male that's maybe trailing the group, because it is a little bit further away from the rest of the herd. But it's nice. It's feeding at the base of this moola tree. Now, normally in the summertime or the spring, when these trees are dropping fruits, you will find that they are feeding on all the... It is a young male, feeding on all the marula fruits that get dropped. This one is just eating whatever it can, dries to see. It keeps pushing little branches out the way. Remember, we always talk about the little branches, sheltering little grasses and seeds and shrubs so they can't get eaten by the other animals. So it's literally trying to maneuver these little shrubs out the way so I can get to some stuff at the base of them. Or maybe even just eat the small sickle bush. Delicious. Brema, you're asking if there's many less bugs in winter in Africa. That's definitely true. There are a lot less bugs because there's not all the vegetation that they eat. There's not the abundance of moisture, and it's very cold. Insects are quite similar to a lot of animals in that they need warm weather to function properly. And so in the wintertime, most insects are dormant or in eggs. So the adults don't live that long. They've laid eggs and they're waiting for the next season before the eggs hatch. And that's also why we don't have many of the migrant birds, because those birds are often coming here for the abundance of food from when Europe is in winter, Africa's in summer. So they'll often fly down here to catch all those bugs and insects that are abundant at that time of year. And things like frogs as well, not that common because the food that they eat is not available, and they also just hiding in burrows, bury themselves in mud. So yes, Brema, absolutely. There are a lot less bugs in winter. It's also why a lot of people like to visit Africa when it's wintertime, because it's more open, the bush, as you can see. Nice and open, not too much long grass, and many fewer bugs, which a lot of people, I think, are quite nervous of. I myself am not a huge fan of spiders. I don't mind looking at them and being close to them, but if they climb on me, whew, I get the shivers. This elephant looks very content. It is a young male, and it's definitely big enough for it to have been pushed out of the herd, but it's shadowing the herd. It might not have been too long away from the rest of the adults because it's a bit big. It's a bit too aggressive for the young ones. Well, I'm a little bit nervous of spiders when they climb on me, but apparently Lauren loves them, so let's send you over to her.
I actually do love spiders now, very much so. It took a while, and I really don't want one crawling on me, but yes. I really appreciate spiders after the summer we've just had. I was reminiscing about summer earlier, and wow, I miss it. Now we've got fresh lion tracks coming near Treehouse Dam, so we're just going to do a little scratch around the area and see if we can find out who they belong to. I imagine it's the Nkuhumas and the Avokas. They were on the property yesterday, but as to where they've gone, that's what we're going to try and figure out. They definitely didn't walk on this road, that was clear. I popped into the Hyena Den. I just like to pop in every day. It's good to start noting down who's at the den, who's not at the den. We obviously don't have to stay there the full drive, but I personally like to pop in, and nobody was home, I'm afraid. We can hear lots of hyenas whooping. I could hear them from my bed this morning, so I wonder if something exciting is going on and we just haven't found it yet. There could possibly be a leopard with a kill, or lions could have killed something small. Jackie, there's actually a difference between poisonous and venomous. And it's the difference. Oh my goodness, the elephants have really destroyed this road. The difference is in the method of delivery. So when it comes to spiders, believe it or not, they're actually all classified as venomous. Every single spider. Yes, all venomous. But it's not, they're not all necessarily able to deliver it. They don't all have the sort of equipment or the appendages to actually deliver it. They have to bite it, so they're said to be venomous and not poisonous. And yes, there are lots of dangerous spiders in South Africa. In winter, we really don't see too many spiders. I don't think I've seen any since coming back. It's not the climate for them. You start to see the spiders come out once. I'm just looking for my diker. Danny boy. I've not seen Danny boy since coming back either. But yes, they start to come out during the summer, and some of them can harm us. You've got button spiders. Button spiders are venomous. You also have the violent spider. Now that's cytotoxic, and that's actually affected many people in our camp. And what cytotoxic means is once the venom is injected into your skin, it starts to destroy the tissue. So it wastes away the skin, the sort of underlying tissue, and the muscle. And many of our staff in camp got bit by a violent spider, and it can be very, very nasty, because depending on how much venom was injected into that area, it can spread and it can destroy all the tissue and leave you with a really, really nasty scar. Neurotoxic venom is the worst. That's when it attacks your central nervous system. It affects your brain as well. So there's different types of venom, and yes, all spiders are said to be classified as venomous, but they can all deliver it. Okay, I'm just going to concentrate here and try and see if I can find any tracks. And while I do that, we're going to send you back across to Eric with his lions.
So most of the action, I think, is starting to slow down. We've got this one cub, he's the furthest one on the left. And then a couple of the sub-adults are still every now and again up and moving around. And if you can hear that shrill sound, that's a spur fowl. And one of the sub-adults got up and just chased a whole flock of spur fowls that just exploded up into the air. And now they're just calming down. And I think it's maybe one of the contact calls to try and find the rest of the group. And it's quite interesting. I mean, majority of the playfulness that's going on with this group is coming from the young females. The young males were either feeding or resting, and that one at the background there's just decided to go after a stick. And you have to think that it's probably one of the reasons like this. I mean, more willing to get up and start moving around and start chasing each other, and that's probably because from this age their hunting skills are starting to develop really nicely. And I mean, they're probably at this age probably better hunters than their brothers. So most of them, I mean, that one I think just got something really nice and nice and big to feed on, so it's quite full and just looking to rest up, and still lots of blood around its face. And then the next one is the young male, who also went missing, quite like that young white female, and they arrived together on exactly the same night. And so we think that they must have joined up somehow, and between the two of them they managed to bounce off each other's energy, and they eventually managed to find their way back towards the pride. But he's resting now, but every now and again he'll pick up his head and he keeps looking over towards where the dominant males are. So our lions are taking a nap for now, and it might be the end of their day. Let's go and see if Pinder's lions are a bit more active.
Good morning and welcome to and Beyond Pinder Private Game Reserve. My name is Clive, and behind the camera today we have Marcel, and we are busy following Mountain Pride and these little youngsters, and they keep disappearing from us. So I'm gonna have to try and move forward again slightly here. There we go. There we go. Now we've got a nice view here. Look at this. So they have been kind of running wild and playing a lot this morning. As you can see, they're just constantly on the move. Right, so for those of you who have seen them before, you might know, but this is the two of the lionesses from Mountain Pride and their 5 youngsters. Oh, the last little straggler to get up there. Right, I think I'm just going to move us up again a little bit forward to where we can see them nicely. Neva, you are asking what is the largest lion litter that I've seen. I think 4, if I remember right, 4 cubs. These 5 are split between 2 females. So one of them has got 3 and one of them has got 2. So that's the difference here. I think, if I remember right, the biggest litter I've seen though is 4 for one lioness. Oh, this is also going to be a very nice view, I think. They are so cute. Look at their little pot bellies as well. They look like they've eaten something recently. They have, for the last week or so, been making themselves very scarce. We haven't been able to find them for quite a while. So we think they've probably caught something big in the last little while and been eating it. Oh, look. Oh, my word, it's a bone. One of them has found a bone. He's run off with it like it's the prize. Crazy little cubs. So yeah, they've been very active this morning. Francois, yes, I'm sure the eyesight would eventually maybe not be as good just like us humans. As you get older, obviously your eyesight goes a little bit. Look at this little one stalking his mother. I'm sure it would be very much the same for lions, yes. But they do have incredible eyesight. And luckily for them, they've got the rest of the pride to help them out. So, you know, in the whole pride, there's always good, young, fresh eyes to spot things from far. Whereas something like a leopard or a cheetah that's more solitary, or especially a leopard anyway, more solitary, you know, they might have to, they might battle a little bit more if they can't see when they're older, because it's only them. I love how these cubs are just constantly playing. Now they're all running off behind the bushes there. Sorry. I was trying to bend all the way out of the way for the TV there. Tammy, you're right, yeah, here come the two lionesses, speaking of them. And they have been, I mean, well, so far they've raised these 5 up till, what, these cubs must be about 4 months old now. So, yeah, I agree, I think they've done very, very well so far. Been catching enough food for them. But you can see, I mean, they are huge lionesses, beautiful lionesses. This lioness that's walking towards us now, if you look especially at her back legs, still a little bit spotty on her back legs, which means she's still relatively young. Obviously need another cup of coffee. And then the other lioness that you won't be able to see right now, here she's just starting to come now. This is a very old lioness. She's one of the old lionesses of this pride. Oh, this little cub wants to pounce on the mother now. Look at this. Oh, she's even playing with it. Letting the cub chase her. Right, I'm going to spend a bit more time here, see what these little cubbies get up to. And we'll let you carry on with your morning safari.
We've driven past the site of the buffalo kill. And up in this tree here, we have a hooded vulture. This is obviously a very stubborn individual who is still hoping for some scraps from the Ingahuma's buffalo kill. But there's really nothing left. The skull is there, the horns and the boss are there, but that's about it. There's a lot of other vultures, the whitebacks, way in the trees off in the distance. But they're probably waiting to ride the thermals. So vultures are heavy birds, and they're probably waiting just until it's sort of warm enough to actually go ahead and ride the thermals up in the sky. And by doing this, they can use flapping flight, as they call it, but by riding the thermals, it actually saves them a lot of energy. So it's a sort of energy-saving mechanism to get up into the sky, because their wings are very, very long and heavy. So flapping flight uses a lot of energy. So by riding the thermals, they're said to save up to 3 times the amount of energy, which is quite substantial for a bird. So it's sort of facilitating that low energy flight, which means they can save their energy from doing other things. And what I mean by riding the thermal is basically just sort of pockets of rising warm air, because warm air rises and cold air sinks. So in the morning, when the sun is going up, the warm air starts to rise with it. And that provides little pockets of air, just like when you're on a flight. And you can feel the sort of turbulence, and you can feel the ooh when it goes through pockets of air. It's the same sort of mechanism. And that's what the vultures normally wait for. And it also allows them to gain height advantage. By being highly visual birds, the higher you go, the more you can see all around you. But this hooded vulture, I can assure you, is not waiting on the thermals. It's waiting on another dead buffalo, which I have a funny feeling we should tell it that's probably not going to happen. That buffalo is long gone from the Nkuhuma Pride and hyenas. Butterfly, love this question, never get tired of it, because there's different collective nouns depending on what the animal is doing. So if the vultures are in flight, so there's a group of them all together, not just one singular individual, then you call that a kettle of vultures, which is bizarre. I wonder who decided that. Then when you have vultures resting on the ground or resting in trees, like this individual is doing, but of course it's on its own, you call them a committee. Or you can use the word venue, but for some reason I don't like that. I don't like saying a venue of vultures. I would rather say a committee. It makes them sound like they mean business. And if the vultures are feeding on the ground and it's a feeding frenzy, you then use the term awake. Not awake, but wake. I hope that made sense. So great question, Butterfly. 3 different collective nouns based on what they're doing. Just like giraffes. If the giraffes are still, it's a tower. If they're moving, it's a journey. I think collective nouns are just absolutely fabulous. I love them. And that's what you call vultures. Now I'm actually just going to drive ahead a little bit and try and show you this buffalo skull. And show you how little remains after the Nkuhumas have... Oh, hello. We're being watched up ahead here. Nope, not interested. Okay, let's just go ahead and show you this buffalo. I think, Theo, are you able to get the skull from there? There you go. That's all that remains for those of you who have been watching the past few days. And that huge buffalo carcass that the Nkuhumas had, that's all that remains. Would you look at that? Being devoured. Not even a hyena really eats the horns. But for some reason, the hooded vulture is very determined that some scraps may reappear. So I'm going to head on to Chitwa, my favourite waterhole in the area, but I believe David is at a waterhole of his own.
Yeah. The blacksmith.
Yeah. Starting the wild.
You're back with us. And we're not at the waterhole yet. Chitwa's not that close. So, yes, we're on our way to the waterhole. We just have a bit of an impala roadblock. Good morning, everyone. Apologies about that. I'm not sure what happened to David. I think he's heading to Simbambili today in the west to see what he can find. Let's say good morning to these gorgeous impala. They seem quite nervous. I wonder if it's our presence or something else. Impalas will always give the game away. Impalas are your buffer species out here. They're so fantastic at everything they do. Evolution-wise, they're so successful. They really, really are. They're mixed ecotone feeders. which means they can make the most of any vegetation, browsing and grazing. Ultimately, it means they're not very fussy. And they're also prolific breeders. They really are successful when they breed. So they're highly well adapted to the environment that they're in, which means that they're very, very numerous. Oh, there's one random one just posing in the middle of the road there. And by being so numerous, this means that they are the buffer species. So they're the preferred prey of many of the predators out here. But that's okay. That's why they are so numerous at the end of the day. And they protect the sort of, well, they lessen the pressure on all the other vulnerable species around them. So as we watch this, we're going to sit and watch this magnificent male posing for us before we head to Chitwa.
So these cubs, when we watch them coming down to have a drink, have not stopped drinking in the space of 20-25 minutes. So they must have been really thirsty. I'd love to see them to get up and move around so we can see how full their bellies are after a big suckle like this. But I suppose they're very lucky that it's just the two of them, so there's lots of space for them to fit on. So tiger cub, yes, for sure, and we experienced this with this pride of lions that we're looking at now, and I mean the 8 sub-adults are roughly about the same age, and between the 8 of them there's 4 different mothers. And so 3 of them, 3 mothers, pretty much gave birth at exactly the same time and almost in exactly the same spot. And so that just really helped the success, I guess, of the whole litter making it to adulthood, because they didn't have to leave the cubs very often. I mean, one would stay behind pretty much all the time, whilst the other 2 would go off and hunt, and they seemed to take it in turns like that. And so there was always a big adult female who knew exactly what she was doing, who could just sit over these lion cubs and just watch them and keep them nice and protected. And so if they come into estrus and they mate and they fall pregnant and they're due at the same time, they'll definitely try and den as close together as possible. They might separate in the beginning, so the youngsters, I guess, get to know the mothers, and then once the youngsters start moving around a little bit more, you might find that they'll slowly but surely start to group them together. And I mean, if one of the lionesses happens to get injured in a hunt where she won't be able to make it back, or if she happens to die from that injury, then a lot of the time the other females will take the responsibility on from those cubs. So they'll help with the suckling, they'll help with the upbringing of the cubs, and hopefully look after them. Just see, I mean, we've got the majority of the pride and the sub-adults and the cubs on this side, and then we've got the 2 lazy big fat males. And just this is the one that we were following, and just as he's lying down, that you can really see how full that belly is. It is ballooned up. So I mean, if I'm right and that these lions made a kill and it was something small, then what would have happened is this male might have rushed in and taken it away from the rest of the pride, and that's why they're not looking completely full. Some of them have got a couple of bloody spots around their faces, but nothing like him. So he probably would have eaten the majority of the spoils. And then his brother is somewhere in that bush. You might just have to try and look for a slightly whiter color within the grass there. Just to the left and middle of the screen, there's a small little white spot in that grass. I think that could be the front paw of his brother. But quite difficult to spot at this angle. It's just been so rewarding. I mean, to see this male lion to start off with, and then follow him, and then find the pride. Everything just worked so perfectly. So, not me, I mean, these white lions are pretty interesting just because they're so rare and unique. It might be one of the most interesting features, but there was a male lion within the Sabi Sands, and I never got to see him myself, but he got injured in a buffalo fight, in a buffalo hunt, and we think he got kicked, and one of his canine teeth on his bottom jaw got dislodged, and it actually stayed there for I think like 2 or 3 months or something like that. And it was quite interesting because you'd see these photos of this male lion, and one of his bottom teeth would just be hanging outside of his mouth and resting on his chin, and that was pretty interesting to see. Sometimes these lionesses develop quite a lot of scars if they're fighting with one another over a carcass. And so I guess also, if you see lions that have tried to hunt a porcupine, you'll see these quills that have been poked into their chins and the side of their cheeks a lot. It's also quite an interesting feature you see sometimes. It's nice that she's picked up her head and she's looking towards us, and just look at how good condition she is. She's got such nice broad shoulders, and she's closing her eyes now, so it looks like she's probably going to be settling down for the day.
We are just sitting here at the Simbambili Dam, taking it in, listening and looking to see if anything is moving around the dam, but so far all quiet, just a few terrapin in the water, some ground birds around the banks, not too much happening. There's those terrapin moving about, you can just see its head, the crest of its back. I love sitting around a waterhole and watching and listening. It can go from peace and tranquility to absolute chaos in a matter of seconds. And that is because predators love waterholes. They know that animals are going to come down to drink. They have to at some stage. And they often will lie in wait around the perimeter in the thick grass. And speaking of predators, Natasha, you've asked, do leopard ever venture into the territory of lion? And they most certainly do. They will overlap each other. They are often and always found in each other's territory, so the bush won't be pegged out to only have lion in one area and only leopard in another. They will cross over. Whereas the species-specific territories will have their boundaries. Lion prides will not normally infringe on each other's territories, just like two male leopards will have their own territories apart, but you will find leopard inside the same area that lion operates in or that they utilize. So definitely, Natasha, you will find both predators in the same area. And although they do have to have the same, they do utilize the same resources in the way of food, there aren't in that much competition, leopard and lion. Lion being a pride animal that hunt together. Leopard are more solitary and will often just give each other a wide berth. They won't generally have conflict. We're going to sit here a bit longer and see if anything comes down to drink. While we do that, let's send you over to another body of water with Lauren at Chitwa Dam.
Well, they're not drinking, but they're definitely enjoying swimming. We have a whole bloat of hippos here, and I think the youngster is there. That little one in the middle. It's getting so big already. That's a little calf. And if you look behind the calf's head, you can see how dry and cracked Mum's skin is. Looks like she on her back. Just behind the calf's head. That's it. It's very dry and it's very cracked, and that's one of the reasons hippos do spend so much time in the water, because their skin is, believe it or not, very fine. So although they have a really sort of thick layer of fat underneath, almost like blubber, their skin itself, the epidermis, is actually really, really fine, and it's extremely sensitive to dehydration, and that's why it's like that. That's why it's so dry and cracked, and it's said to be up to 7 times more sort of sensitive to dehydration than other mammals. So that's exactly why they submerge in water and try and keep that skin of theirs nice and dry. So I think I'm going to sit here for a little while and enjoy a glorious morning at Chitwa.
All right, welcome back again. These lions are just moving off of this little mountain here now. I haven't seen where the little cubs are, but they must be just behind that one female that's left there. What an amazing morning. These lionesses are looking very, very attentive and looking like they're possibly hunting as well. But they're going to be moving into quite a thick area soon, so it is possible that we might lose them. But with this being the last adult that's coming down, I'm sure the little cubs are going to come down here after them. This is very interesting. The cubs don't seem to be coming out. I wonder if the lionesses haven't left the cubs up in the... Okay, I see one of the cubs. I think the cubs might be staying now up in these rocks, up in these trees. Possibly while the lionesses go off hunting. It'll be very interesting to see anyway. Oh, look at this, like perfect morning light on this lioness. This is amazing. Blue kelpie, you're asking if the teeth grow back in lions? No, if a tooth falls out or breaks or something like that, it's not going to grow back. That'll be that tooth done. Sure, this is one of the first times since I've been here. It's one of the first times that I've actually seen lionesses kind of stash their cubs somewhere and move off and go hunting. But now we don't seem to have a view of where those little cubs are. No, I think they're hiding up in the shade there now. You can imagine how nice and sheltered it is up in that little spot. Nice rocks, nice trees, a bit of shade for when it gets hotter. And maybe the 2 adults are going to go off hunting for a couple of hours. Sure, yeah. It really is amazing. Alright, well, since these little cubs have disappeared and the adults have gone off hunting down into quite a thick area, we're going to send you across to Dylan to say good morning.
Sorry about that. Everyone seems to be losing their voices this morning. I'm sure sure Dylan's voice will come back. We're leaving Chitwa now, and the lions, I think, are still on Juma. I think they're up in the northern section, and that's the Nkuhumas. So I think we're just going to race up to that side and see if we can find them. The Nkuhumas disappeared for a very long time, and it's just amazing that they're now spending a fair bit of time on Juma, which is a good thing, of course, for us. But if they do stay on Juma for a prolonged period, I wonder how that will affect the leopard dynamics. Now, lions and leopards live sympatrically, and many of you wonder what that means, but it means that they share the same geographical location, and they're very much used to one another. So we're going to go ahead and see if the lions really are still around, and you guys are going to go across to David, the mongoose.
We've just stopped here looking at a mongoose in the distance. Very first thought it was a slender mongoose, but it doesn't appear to be. It's a little bit large for a dwarf. It's not usual that. It looks way too large to be a dwarf, eh, Craig? What do you think? Quite interesting. Not normally one struggles to identify a mongoose, but at this distance, we definitely thought it was a slender to start with, but the tail is not very bushy at all, unless it's just kind of got it at a funny angle there. I think maybe the back of its tail's gone down a bit of a hole, that's why it's throwing us off. Very cool, sunning itself on top of the termite mound, warming up for the day. It's quite funny, my brother-in-law Ryan has got some chickens at home, and he says that every single morning a slender mongoose comes and steals just one egg out of the coop. No more, no less. Just takes its egg and goes about with its day, and he doesn't mind. That's the tax you pay when you have chickens in the bush. Now, Craig, that must be a slender mongoose. I just think the back of its tail is kind of down a hole. That's why it looked so funny. Indigo girl, you think it's a dwarf mongoose? I think it's a bit big for a dwarf mongoose. We'll try and inch forward just now without scaring it. And it's also very light. The dwarves are a little bit darker in color. It's very far away. But lovely to have the zoom and see it from a distance without disturbing it. It really is in a bit of a sun coma there, enjoying the heat of the morning. Or the cold of the morning and the heat of the sun, I should say. You're on such a beautiful vantage point here in Simbambili in this open area. This lovely open clearing you can see, nice and far. It's dotted with termite mounds all over the show. As the sun gets higher in the sky here, not quite so high in Tswalu, so let's send you over to Dylan as he gets going for the morning to get his good morning.
Good morning from another spectacularly beautiful day out here at Tswalu. So I'm just still busy getting dressed. Not really, but you know what I mean. But Davy is on camera working his magic. My name's Dylan. It is a pleasure having you with us as always. It is nothing but a pleasure, and I'm so pleased that those of you that are able to join us. Those of you that have been working hard might still be resting, or you'll get up later and watch. Just really enjoy it, and also feel free to ask us questions. I'm going to do two things, so just please bear with me. One is I'm going to just show you quickly the vehicle that we're using for the filming. This is like a little bit of behind the scenes. This is a new one. Our old one was like a game drive vehicle with seats. It was a little bit awkward. Jandre we had to work with that for like 9 weeks, but this one is now kitted out for this. So this is, I think, and it's very appealing. This is Davy's breakfast. Very appealing, but something even more exciting. This is so cool. One of our researchers, Wendy, that works on pangolins, doing a PhD, she's actually completing her PhD on pangolins now, called me about an hour and a half ago and says, you won't believe it, like right close to where the meerkats are, on the road, what does she get crossing in front of her? An African wildcat.
Not getting any comms. Well, just inched a little bit closer, and it is definitely a slender mongoose. You can very clearly see that now in the face and the body. What threw us off was it has its tail down the termite mound chimney, so it doesn't have that dark bushy bit at the back that normally distinguishes the slender mongoose from a distance. It's one of the beauties about the bush is there's always something out of the ordinary. It's not always textbook, so it makes you stop and think and have a double take. But a lovely sighting of a slender mongoose. You don't often get them stationary like this. We've just stopped far enough so that it doesn't feel disturbed. And I also think it is loath to leave its vantage point there in the sun. It looks very happy.
Sorry, we just kept losing you there. But so we got this African wildcat crossing the road. Well, Wendy, our pangolin researcher, did. But you can see it's a cat. You look at the back, and I'll put my hand there as a scale. So look how tiny those tracks are. And that's two sets there. So this track over here, you can see at the back, has got the 3 lobes, which is very distinctive on the cat, and it's very broad and round. So that's the hind foot. This is the front foot over here. Oh, sorry, that's the front foot. This very broad one is the front foot, my apologies. And this one over here is the hind foot, which is superimposed on the back foot over there. So much narrower and longer, but that is so cool to see. So you went from there, you actually bounded off the road, went from there to here, and then somewhere under these vehicle tracks, there would have been another set, and then over here, and then over there, and then out like that. So this is so exciting, but what it means as well is that we have been spot on the money in terms of the area that we've been searching for this cat over the past 9 weeks. No, we've been working the right area. It is literally just a matter of persevering, time and patience. But I want to give you a quick indication here, just to show you how difficult tracking is in these environments. So this is the, where am I now? This is the picture in the book of what an African wildcat looks like. Remember I said that very broad round one is the back track? There you can see, there's the front track. So that's the front and there's the hind one. But I mean, look, if you compare that to that, all right, I'm just kind of putting it out there. So no, there are some interesting similarities, but also it's not easy learning to track just using a book. The best is actually being on the ground. And so I take my hat off to anyone doing that, because it's really, Lisa says this red sand is awesome. And yeah, the color varies so much. You get this rich red sand. There's Davy giving you a good demo. But sometimes it gets much darker and sometimes it's much paler depending on the substrate. But yeah, as I was saying, I'll take my hat off to anyone that's learning to track. I know there's a lot of brilliant courses going on at the moment where people can't actually be present on the ground learning to track, and people are putting in a huge amount of effort, using books and videos and literature, that kind of stuff. And it's really, it takes a lot of patience, perseverance and dedication to do that. So yeah, those of you doing it, good job, eh?
Right, welcome back to and Beyond Phinda Private Game Reserve, and if you're looking at the screen you might not see too much, but in actual fact that is a very, very camouflaged, very big actually, lizard called the Triagama. Now I'm no reptile expert, but this looks like a juvenile. I was just reading about it, and it says the juveniles are lichen coloured. And I think this is very lichen coloured to me, so I think this might be a juvenile, but it's already very, very big. Now, obviously, with these Triagamas being reptiles, they are cold-blooded and therefore a lot less active in winter. So now, sitting in this dead tree with no leaves, on the side where the sun is shining, this is a perfect spot for it to just warm up in the sun. And it's funny how we actually, because I mean you can't, if you just drive past, you'll never ever see something like this. And what we were doing when we were turning off the road from where those lion cubs were, thank you, Jennifer. Thanks for saying that. Yeah, as I was saying, we came out of where the lion cubs were and we were just turning around. So I put the nose of the vehicle all the way up almost to this tree. And then I was like, oh, what is that? And it was this little guy. But yeah, if you're just driving past, it's incredible how this camouflage is. You can hardly even see it in the tree.
You can even see its tiny little claws.
Oh, cool. Marcel says you can even see its little claws. Obviously, you zoomed in far there. Pretty amazing, but he's just sitting there, and any little insects or anything that fly anywhere close or land on these branches, that's exactly what this agama is looking for. Even termites, yeah, any little insect that would be around here. Amazing how he just keeps dead still as well. I'm very interested to see if we walk up there, if it realizes that it's been seen and it tries to escape, or if it just stays there. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to scare it off and make it burn unnecessary energy trying to get away from me, especially in winter when he just has found a good spot to warm up. But his predators would be things like some of the birds of prey. You get little birds here called rock kestrels, which would be looking for exactly this. Lots of other birds of prey that might be able to catch something like this as well. But they would be attracted to what would give these animals away is the movement. And with him sitting so camouflaged in a tree like this and not moving, there's no way any predators are going to see him. I suppose he would even have predators like maybe jackal, or probably even lion cubs actually. Even lion cubs, if they had to see him moving around, they would probably just keep on pestering him. Gigi, you are exactly right. It is quite cold here this morning. It's probably only about 15 degrees centigrade. And as I was saying, that is exactly why he is sitting right here in the sun, just warming up. It's a perfect spot. Birds do it even, although they're not cold-blooded. This is because he's cold-blooded that he's doing this. So he has to regulate his own temperature. But yeah, really cool. Anyway, while the agama and us actually sit here and try and warm up, we're going to send you back across to Eric at Ngala.
Those lions sleeping, doing pretty much exactly the same thing that when we kind of saw them in the earlier part of the morning. So they were just resting. The cubs were still drinking, and so they probably still are drinking, I'd guess. But we decided to just take a nice little cruise along the banks of the Timbavati River. So we are on the northern bank, and we're driving in a nice big circle back down towards the area where Nikki and Owen in the last couple of days have been watching the Makoti male. or that young male leopard who's been around. And the chances of them being there, I would guess after 2 days, are probably quite slim. But because that impala carcass was hoisted so nicely, there's a chance that it might still be there, so there's a chance that he could also be there. So I think, especially with the way that we started off this morning, anything that we see along the way is going to be a bonus. So I'm not too worried if we don't find the Makoti male himself. But it might just be nice to at least see what the carcass is and if there's anything else that might be feeding on the carcass. Somebody from the tented camp last night said that they did see they heard a big male leopard, or they thought it was a big male leopard. Oh, there's a cool little bird on the dead tree there. Oh, I thought for a second it was a lilac-breasted roller, but another cool bird nonetheless. That very, very sharp bill. This is a kingfisher, and it looks like it's got something in its beak. What is that? Is that a stick, or is it a worm or something? It looks like a stick. And so this one, I mean, it's got a very, very red bill, and then from the bill across the eye to the back of the head is a black stripe with a brown head. So this one is called a Stripe Kingfisher. Oh. That was really cool, and it looked like it chased off a drongo when it took off. Can you see where it landed, Owen? Oh, so the drongo's taken over the same spot. There's actually quite a cool little bird party here. So that's a drongo. And then if we fly over, it will be quite tricky to get on, but I can see a woodpecker hopping around. So, Owen, do you see where the drongo landed? No. In the same tree, just to the left of it, on the same level. So if you did it. Okay. Let's see, there it is. Awesome, well done. And it's just hid behind a bush. Okay, yo. So that's a woodpecker. I'm not sure which one it is. It is very, very small. Sure, and so I'm leaning towards a Cardinal Woodpecker. Hey. Well done. Apparently Stripe Kingfisher is new to quite a few people's bird lists. That's very, very cool. It's a nice little bird to see. Maybe this woodpecker is one for the list too. It's quite a... there we go. Yo, it's quite hard because there's lots and lots of leaves in there. But with woodpeckers, the important thing to do is to look at its size, and then also to look at the coloration of the head and any detail you find there. So this one, because it was so small, and what I noticed is it had a very, very dark black head at the back, and in the front, so on the forehead, just above the bill, there was a patch of brown. So I hope I get to show you it, but it just seems to be not really cooperating with us. But it is a bird called a Cardinal Woodpecker. And maybe because it is in the tree and it's not really giving us the best of views, why don't I just quickly show you in the book. So this is, here are a couple of woodpeckers that we find over here. So this one is the one that's in question, and it's the female. And so she's got that brown forehead that I mentioned. She's got that very, very dark black head and lots and lots of streaking on the back. And I mean, one of the smallest woodpeckers that we find here. It's only about 15 centimeters, so maybe just a bit bigger than the quill that I have in my hand. And yeah. See what I was talking about, the facial features of woodpeckers. So lots of red, lots of sort of streaking and spots on the foreheads. So we get the Bennett's woodpecker, the golden-tailed woodpecker, we get the Cardinal Woodpecker that we're looking at, and then we get the bearded woodpecker. So those are our four options. And you can almost just, I guess, process of elimination work it out. But luckily I managed to see the top of the head over there. So, Cardinal Woodpecker. That's cool. What else do you have in there, Owen? Owen thinks he's seen some more movement. Okay, I can see it now. You got him. Yeah, there you go. Well done. Yeah, that's a really, really nice view. So I hope it was there long enough for... Oh, it's still fluttering around the tree. I thought it disappeared for a second. Sure, there's lots of birds going on here. Owen, can I just point you... You see, if you look on the ground, there's that stick that grows out at an angle. Yeah. On the top of that stick, there's another very, very pretty bird that you don't see out in the open. Go down a bit. Down a bit. More to the left. I think, yeah, that stick straight ahead. Yeah. Never mind. Okay. Yeah, it's gone now, unfortunately. It was a small little, it looked like a firefinch. There's lots of different species here, so we might just stick around and see if we can show you any other interesting, colourful little birds.
That sounded like a very incredible. I'm slightly jealous. I've never seen a kingfisher. Now this is the area where it was thought that... Come on, Franklins. Can you cross the road, please? I'm looking for lions. The lion audio was coming from. Now determining the sort of distance and direction of sound is a lot more trickier than you would first think. I haven't heard any lions. We've been turning off the engine. I don't see any signs of lions, but I do believe they are still here. It's just a case of trying to determine exactly where that sound was coming from. Andy, you were wondering if the Nkuhuma pride and the Talamati pride have came into contact with one another. Not that I know. Not recently anyway. They have in the past, that's for sure. Their territories border one another. And they're very, very familiar with one another through audio and through scent. They'll know exactly who each other are, but I don't believe recently they've came into contact with one another. Now, it wouldn't benefit them unless there's a sort of dispute over a carcass, like that famous incident that happened up in the Masai Mara a few years ago. There was a hippo that died, we're not actually quite sure how it died, right on the territorial boundary of two prides. And therefore the two prides came to eat the hippo. They were in the water, they were on top of the carcass. And there was a huge fight, a huge battle between the two prides, and it resulted in a lot of, well, a loss of cubs, which was really sad. And the male coalition that was involved, that was residing over the two prides, just sat back and didn't really do anything. It was a battle between the lionesses. So the result was death and a loss of the younger generation of cubs. So it really doesn't benefit any sort of individual or prides to battle with a neighbouring one. The results are not going to be good, and therefore it wouldn't really benefit the Nkuhumas or the Talamatis to sort of bump into one another. They will avoid one another. I think the last recorded sighting of the two of them together was again over a carcass. A funny feeling it was a zebra, but I could be wrong. And yes, it wasn't. Neither party was received well. But they haven't met recently as far as I know, but they will be aware of one another's presence. I wonder if the Nkuhumas are aware that the Talamatis are pushing in, possibly. I don't think they've gone that far north yet to realise that the scent of the Talamatis is fresh on their northern sector. I just think the sort of guesstimate, if you like, of location is wrong. Emma, I didn't get that name. You'll have to repeat that one more time. Okay, I'm not getting that name, but the question is, how often do lions hunt? And it really depends on the Okay, sorry, I'm getting lots of mixed information in my ear here. It really depends. So if they've feasted on a buffalo, like the Nkuhumas have recently, that's going to carry them on for a few days. They're going to have full bellies. They're going to need to digest. But if a lion pride takes down an impala, then that's obviously going to be a bit of a different situation, because it's not going to feed the whole pride and it's not going to be enough. It's not going to sustain them. So they'll need to hunt again. So it really depends on what they're feasting on. So I'm going to turn off my engine in a little bit and try and see if we can hear anything. And as I do that, we are going to send you across to someone, somewhere, with something.
So our little lion cubs are sticking right up in the rocks where we couldn't see them properly. The lionesses, as I said, went off hunting. So we decided to come and explore a bit. We're down right in the south of the reserve, a really beautiful area, close to Mountain Lodge, and we thought we would try and find some rhinos maybe. We're going to be coming up to some big open grasslands, so we thought maybe there's even a possibility of some cheetah. Those two new male cheetah were not too far from here last time they were seen. There's still that female with the two oldish cubs now that are still wandering around somewhere. Haven't seen them for a little while. So they could be around. Plus we thought there might be some nice birds out there. Might try and see if we can find some nice birds. We shall see. Those little lion cubs were so amazing this morning. No better way to start the day, that's for sure. Even this typical area we're in here, where it's quite thick, can't really see right now, but there's a lot of timbuti trees as well, which for something like black rhino means perfect habitat. And there's actually a big game trail coming up quite soon on this road, where I always see black rhino tracks crossing over here. So maybe even this morning there'll be some black rhino tracks, which would be another amazing one to see. And I don't know if those of you who remember a couple of weeks back I showed you some elephant bones. That was on this road that we're on as well. It's a bit behind us and off on the right hand side. Here's this big game trail. Let me just check for tracks quickly here, because this is this big game trail I was talking about. There. No. Nothing from today. Critter Freak, you're also very excited to see some rhinos. Well, with us coming out to these big open grasslands, as I say, probably in about 2 minutes, that would be a perfect spot for us to start trying to look for some white rhinos and even black rhinos. There's little thickets, lots of little thickets. Lots of little thickets as we go, so possibly even good areas for black rhinos. But while we get into that area, I'm going to let you carry on with your safari.
So
Davy and I did something a little bit different. We've got down to the burrows now, but normally we'll unpack all the kit off the vehicle, bring it down, set it up, and then start filming live. But what we did this time, because that African wildcat literally was about 300 meters down the road, those tracks that I saw you coming in this direction. So we took a chance saying, well, I mean, it would walk that in probably 2 minutes tops, you know, if it's just going along at normal pace. So we thought, well, we'll power up at the vehicle and then lug all the kit down while being live. So we were like trying a bit of a balancing act there, because I was hoping, and it was a tiny chance, that, you know, if we're walking down, we might see the cat dart out of a bush somewhere and get a quick glimpse of it for you. But anyway, be that as it may, we didn't. These things happen. So now I've just been doing a quick check of the area around the burrows here for any sign that it's actually been here, and there's nothing so far. So I think these meerkats are still, well, not think, they're definitely still tucked up in bed. But it shouldn't be too much. Okay, I've got one that's just sticking out. You can't see it now, but he's going to be out now. Now watch. Good morning. Good morning. There, you can just see its head now. Good morning. Yeah, little ones. Hey, little ones. We are checking for wildcats for you. We haven't seen anything. We're on sentry duty. We've got you covered. We've got you covered, little one. Yeah, these cat tracks would be incredibly difficult to pick up, but that's why you must just go slowly, and there's no rush on these kind of things. Hey, yes, you guys are getting out of bed late. So the other remarkable thing about this morning compared to yesterday, I forgot one of my jackets at the house yesterday, so anyway, and it was pretty cold. But this morning, when we stopped for those meerkat tracks already, and at whatever, 7:15 or whatever, not meerkat, what's that other animal, the African wildcat, 7:15 or whatever it was already getting warm. And like, ching, 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 layer off. So, but I decided to stop where I am, just for the record. Hey, little ones. Yeah, I don't see any, certainly not that I can pick up. I've got no sign of this African wildcat having got to this colony yet, so.
Well, we've been doing a big roundabout of Pride Lands looking for signs of some lions which had moved through Pride Lands earlier, and unfortunately they'd moved past our boundary. But in our search we did come across some elephants, which is fantastic. A different group to the ones we saw earlier. This actually might be a group of bulls, but I'm not sure yet. These ones that are in front of us now are definitely bulls, and they're not so far from Ndlovu Dam. So they might come down and drink once they've finished eating their fiber for the morning. Weet-Bix is best with a little bit of milk. In this case, roots are best with a bit of water. So hopefully they'll come down and drink shortly. It's amazing how white their tusks are. Very, very pale in color. I wonder if it's because of all the bark that at the moment they're having to scrape with their tusks in order to pull off the bark off the big trunks. If it's actually helping to clean their tusks at the moment, which is pretty awesome. Maybe they just have a good dentist. Kirst, you are correct. You know, it's like eating an apple a day, right? Eating an apple a day keeps the dentist away. I don't think that's the phrase, to be honest, but I like it anyway. It's the doctor, but I'll keep it. I like it. No one likes going to the dentist, do they? Let's be honest. But these elephants, those incisors, those modified incisors, are very important to elephants, so they do need to keep them in good health. Here's another young bull coming in. Also has a nice set of tusks. These elephants mostly have quite small tusks that we've seen, although we've got a couple of bulls which have got very thick tusks, and of course Ezulwini, the very giant bull, stealing the food straight out of its mouth. Siblings for you, right? There's Ezulwini, which is a very large elephant bull. He's got huge tusks. He's one of the tuskers, emerging tuskers of the Kruger National Park. And so maybe one of these elephants shares his genes and later in life will have a growth spurt in their tusks. It's completely genetic though, so it's all dependent on who the father was, if these elephants have big or small tusks. Well, we're going to be sending you over to Ngala in the meantime with some feathered animals.
haven't moved too far from that little birding party that we had with you last, and we've stumbled across this really nice big raptor in the tree. And we thought it might be an opportunity for the viewers to tell me what this is rather than for me to tell you. So if you'd like to send through your potential answers, please do so using the hashtag WildEarth on Twitter or at FC on YouTube. And we can see if anyone gets it right. If anyone is looking for a clue, it's got feathers and it's got 2 wings and 2 legs. So hopefully that's enough to give it away. But with eagles, on a more serious note, some of the helpful... Sandy, well done. Hit it out of the park. It is a brown snake eagle for sure. And the way that we can tell is by looking at the general shape of the bird. So it doesn't really have too many distinguishing features other than it's brown. And if you look at the head in proportion to the body, it's got a very, very big head. And then as it turns, see if you can see the color of the eye, that it's got this popping like orange and yellowy eye that really is beautiful. Obviously now that we're talking about its eye, it's facing directly away from us where we can't see it. But another helpful thing to look at with eagles is their legs and looking at the feathers. So if you look at this one, the feathers stop at the knee, and then from the knee all the way down to the ankles and toes, it's completely bare and it's just scales. And so that's pretty characteristic of snake eagles. So black-chested snake eagles, southern banded, western banded, browns. There's the eye. Look at the eye. Really distinctive, even when we're zooming in as much as this. It's a beautiful bird. It's also got a quite a short bill, but it bends and it's very, very pointy. Let's see, it might fly. Look at it. Yep. Okay, so as it flies, look at the wings. See if you can see the colors of the underwing, because that might help you when, come on, take off. When you see it in flight. So it will have brown and white barring. It's showing off for us. It's obviously listening to us. Can we see the 2 different colors? Not quite. But it looks like it's going to take off. So we'll try. I mean, it might just reduce the quality a little bit, but that digital zoom is really nice to get a nice close look at it. It's looking around. And that little flutter you saw was a fork-tailed drongo. So that was perched just below the snake eagle. And if it doesn't want the eagle around, it will start mobbing it, and it will literally just fly and start dive bombing the eagle around the head and the face to try and get it away from its area. Oh, it's looking directly at us now. And so from this position, it will be looking for something to feed on. And they've got exceptionally good eyesight, and so they'll be looking for any movement of anything in the grass. So things obviously like snakes, reptiles, probably even small little mammals, and maybe even birds to a certain extent. But there he is. So after all of that and the promise of him flying, it looks like he isn't going to take off anytime soon.
Well, speaking of birds, have a look at this branch here that we've noticed. So you can see it's been completely chewed off on the ends here, really, really crushed between an elephant's teeth on the edges here, all around here has been chewed on. So an elephant has come through here, and it's still actually a bit wet, so it must have been last night. It's come through here and been feeding. But what's really interesting, have a look at all this here. This is actually, or was, should I say, a bird's nest. So the nest would have been attached in the tree like that, would have been a perfect little cup nest. You can see there's quite a lot of this like green moss around the edge of the nest, which would make it extremely camouflaged in the tree. So it's probably something like a flycatcher, I would guess. Maybe a flycatcher nest, but obviously with an elephant coming and breaking off that whole branch and eating it, it's completely destroyed the nest. Whether or not there were any eggs or anything in here, I suppose we'll never know. I did have a quick look around the area, but I didn't see anything. But I thought that was pretty interesting to see. Shay, yeah, it is. It's well, I know you mean it was neat, as in it's really nice to see, but this nest would have been a beautiful little neat nest as well. You can see it's still actually attached around this branch over here, but really, really cool little nest. Also, we've stopped close to this little watering hole, and there's a really beautiful bird I want to show you. Have a look at that. That is called a green-backed heron, or now called a striated heron. The name has just recently changed. Anyway, while we're talking about these elephants, we're going to send you across to some elephants now.
So these elephants are a little bit pesky. They, one of them just came very close to our vehicle and was bobbing his head as if he was listening to some headphones and just having a wonderful old time. It kept moving past. It was a young bull. They're often very rambunctious. It's a word I like using. It just means that they are excitable and looking to show us their strength and power. And anyway, these elephants, there's another one actually coming towards us right now. It's just quite cool. Hey there, old chap. See this elephant over here? Coming to, he's going to have a good scratch against this young marula tree, which has seen a little bit of elephant action in the past. And now they're going to go to a dam if they keep heading in the direction they're going, the one next to our camp. And so it's probably just having a bit of a scratch before it goes and covers itself in a bit of mud. It's a pretty cool breeze, but it might warm up a bit later today. You'll notice most of these elephants have their ears quite tight to their bodies. Oh yes, a good bum scratch. Sometimes you just got to have a good scratch. Hey, you did it in front of us. We weren't watching. You did it in front of us. See, this is another young bull. You see how they show off always their size, and he looks like he's embarrassed. We caught him scratching his bum. Yeah, well, that's what you get. See, this young elephant's got a lot of damage on its ears. So it's probably a bull elephant, somewhere close to 20 years old, something like that. So it's a young male, but his ears are quite damaged. It's probably from the thick area that it's moved into. Pride Lands hasn't seen elephants for a long time until the fences were dropped. And so these elephants have been moving through some pretty thick areas in order to get to the best vegetation. And that's probably what's causing a little bit of damage to their ears. But it's quite normal. Elephants are quite used to dealing with that. So nice to see these elephants coming down to our dam once again.
We've just moved off from that brown snake eagle who refused to fly, and we've just found these two really nice big elephant bulls who for some time we were both feeding on exactly the same bush. One's just starting to move away. You'll just see him popping out behind the other one. But, I mean, this one, if you just look at that tusk, it's quite nice and thick and it's growing pretty nicely. The other one was slightly bigger. And just see how he's literally breaking off the whole branch and shoving it all in his mouth. Those tusks are so nice and even. But look, he hasn't even finished his mouthful, and he'll scoop up another one and put it in. And this bush that he's feeding on is called a spike thorn. And that's grass. Interesting. It's amazing, eh? So he's got his face in the bush basically, and he's capable of smelling and seeing that long grass and knowing that it's going to be pretty tasty. And literally with his trunk, he's just managed to stick that in the bushes and only take the grass out. And then the next bite, look, only leaves. The trunk and the way that they move it is just so fascinating. And the other one on the right hand side is two feeding on a tree. Slightly, yeah, Tammy, it certainly is. And for such a large animal, you just have to imagine how much they need to eat. So now he's going off to go and join his friend, who's feeding on a tree called a Vaquilia. I might just try and reposition quickly, just so we can try and see him feeding. And the interesting thing is they are very, very, very close, actually right above the area where Nikki had the banded mongoose and the baboons interacting around that one waterhole. And it could have been exactly one of these elephants that would have dug it up. And so if they decide to go down the bank, we might be able to see them digging a fresh hole for some water. They are disappearing. So they're disappearing behind the bush. We'll watch them, and if they do decide to go down, Owen and I will loop around quickly and wait at the water's edge.
Wild Earth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the Wild Earth family.
And we're awake. Good morning. We're still looking a bit sleepy, but we're awake. Dwarf mongoose love their lions out here in the wild. They love to sleep in until it's just warm enough and bright enough to get up in the morning. And a typical day for these little ones actually starts with the alpha male himself. There's an alpha pair, but it's the male that normally comes out of the mound and he checks. It's his sort of responsibility to check the area for safety. Are there any predators lurking around? Any danger present? And then, once it's safe, he'll run back into the mound and he'll summon the rest of his family. Hey everyone, all is good. We can head on out, get some sun, some vitamin D, before we all go hunting. But then he actually marks the rest of the business, the rest of the group, with a secretion. And it's from a special gland, a special anal gland, should I say. And he also uses this to mark territory. But he marks the people, the individuals as well. Game Drive Radio put me off there. And what this means is that no stray mongoose, no stranger from another business, from another area can come into his little family group. He recognizes them all by scent, not visual cues. He's not recognizing the rest of his family by looking at them as we do. He's recognizing them through the scent that he has marked on them all. And basically, at the end of the day, once that sun is setting, he'll check. It may not be obvious checking, but he'll make sure that he can smell or taste all the sort of secretion that's on the mongoose before the sleepover begins. You don't want strangers, you don't want individuals from other family groups in your little mound. So sweet. They're very specific about which side of the mound they bask on as well. It's always got to be facing the sunrise. Although they're mammals, they need that sort of vitamin D injection from the sun before they get going. JT, you're asking the difference between a dwarf mongoose and a slender mongoose. Dwarfs are very small, believe it or not, and they're the smallest of all the mongoose. And slenders are actually much bigger. They've got a longer body shape. It almost looks like a dwarf mongoose, but the body's been pulled from head to tail and stretched out. And the slender mongoose has a very, very long tail with a black tip at the end. They really have a completely different body shape. And we do see slenders out here, but unfortunately we never manage, well, not never, we rarely manage to get them on camera for you. When Davi and I were following Shadulu not so long ago, we came across a slender mongoose den. But unfortunately, just like the dwarves, they change dens every single day. So therefore, it's not possible to relocate them at that same den. So as we watch these mongoose itch and scratch and enjoy the sun, we're going to send you guys back across to Pinda.
Right, welcome back again. And listen quickly, and maybe some of you can guess what this giraffe is eating. I'm just going to let you listen to the crunching. Ah, well done, Indigo Girl and CK. Perfect, well done. Yes, this is a bone. So this giraffe is chewing on a bone that it's found, and it looks like a rib bone of maybe an impala or a nyala maybe. Look at that. So that's a really, really big bone that's sticking out of its mouth, and what it's doing is it's just chewing and getting small little pieces of calcium off of the bone. So it's just their way of getting a few extra little minerals into their body. That is amazing. Super cool. And then if you have a look all the way to the right here, there's a whole lot more giraffe. It's a big journey of giraffe, and there's some zebra as well. So it's actually a really nice scene we've come out to here. Now remember I said I was going to come out to these grasslands to see if there were maybe some rhino or cheetah or something. But it's scenes like this that you stop for every time because it's just so incredible. There's one or two big adult female giraffe and then some small one. Shenzi, that's exactly what I was guessing as well. Yeah, impala or maybe even a nyala. But one of those, I agree. Maybe a rib bone of one of those animals. What a perfect scene. While we enjoy this beautiful scene here, we're going to send you across to Mike with another beautiful scene around some water.
It is wonderful watching elephants drinking at a waterhole. You know, such huge animals, they must get so thirsty when they drink or when they eat all this dry stuff. And as we predicted, that herd of elephants slowly made their way to Ndlovu Dam. And now they've all spaced themselves fairly evenly so that they can all get a nice drink without disturbing each other. There seemed to have been a little bit of pushing and shoving early on when they first arrived, but they've sorted out their differences now. These two pariahs have been shunted from the group. Not sure what they did wrong. Oh, and another elephant's coming down next to us from the opposite side of the dam. All the elephants are coming to visit us. Fantastic, look at that. And there's our camp in the background that you can just see there. So you can see how close we are to these animals on a daily basis. And they basically live here in and around our camp. It's phenomenal. This one here is getting a bit of a warmth. Oh, Martin is asking a very interesting question. Do elephants recognize themselves when they look into their reflection in the water? That's a great question. Our elephants are incredibly intelligent. And I know that I did read some articles regarding understanding intelligence of animals based on whether they could recognize that when they looked in a mirror, they were looking at themselves. Now, that was more to do with primates, but elephants are very intelligent. You know, for their size, their brain is quite big, and so there's a lot of cognizance there. They can figure stuff out. They're really problem solvers. So I think it's quite possible that elephants could recognize themselves. I don't know. I'd have to read up more about it. Have any of you at home, have you ever experienced seeing an elephant that was recognizing itself or solving a problem of some sort? I mean, we see them pushing over branches and digging up things all the time. So, I mean, they're incredible, intelligent animals. But Martin, that's a great question. I'll have to do a little bit more research to find out the answer to that. I would expect that they probably could. I mean, they communicate a vast array of information through these infrasonic sounds, the rumbles that they make, and the high-pitched squeals and shrieks. So it's quite possible. Oh, that's interesting. I understand Lauren was chatting about this mirror experiment with dogs yesterday. So that's pretty much must be the very similar thing that I read, or maybe we read the same article, that animals can recognize themselves. I used to have a dog which would chase its own shadow up and down a wall for literally about 6 hours a day. And that was not a very intelligent animal, I won't lie. His name was Roy. He was very nice, but not particularly smart. There's a few monkeys coming down as well to the waterhole. You see, when large animals like elephants come down to the water, it's probably safe that no lions are going to be close by. So smaller animals like monkeys and impalas can start to come down as well and drink because they know they're not threatened by any predators. It's quite clever. There's a whole troop of monkeys coming now. These monkeys also live quite close to our eco-training camp. Luckily, they don't terrorize us too much. I know they can become quite a nuisance if food stuff's left around and tents are left open, but we make sure the students know quite well to tidy up after themselves. So, yeah, these monkeys are very friendly, haven't caused us any problems. What a beautiful scene. Oh, we're not going to go anywhere. We're going to stick around right over here.
We've also got quite a gorgeous scene going on. It's slightly different to Mike's waterhole experience, but we have got this elephant who we were with, and I mentioned that we're very close to the river and where these elephants have been digging for water recently. He hasn't come up or come down at least to the water, but he's right at the top of the cliff, and so he's beautifully silhouetted. And we're trying to figure out whether or not he wants to come down, because it's quite a steep cliff that he's right up against. But I guess that gives us our answer. He's just turned away and walked in the opposite direction. So at least we got to show you it from here. But we've got another cool little animal right in the middle of frame over there. And I'm sure a bird that most people will recognize as the African fish eagle. And this is one that we've been seeing around here for quite a while this season. The water that it's coming to fish in is pretty much dried out now, which for now might actually play into its hands, because the fish that were living in there, which was mostly barbel, would be exposed by the top of the surface. And so if there are any fish left in there, it would make quite easy picking for a skilled fisher like this African fish eagle. But it seems to almost be puffed out, and it looks like the bottom of the wings is slightly wet, and it's got its wings out and it's holding them open, so it might have even tried to catch a fish and got the calculation wrong and maybe slipped into the water, and it might just be drying off now. Anna Marie, that definitely is regal and majestic. Just the colors on this fish eagle is super cool, like the blacks and the whites, and then also the band of brown that you'll see on the back over there. And then by far, at least in my opinion, one of the most iconic sounds of Africa. And so our elephant has moved away from the water. Mike's elephants are actually at the waterhole, so let's see if they're drinking yet.
So joining those bulls is a whole herd now, the ones that we saw a moment ago. And look how tightly these females and the youngsters packed themselves together at the water's edge. Whereas the bulls were evenly spread out, the females with their youngsters want to stay as tight as possible, just in case there's any trouble. There's a lot of elephants now turning up. I think this must be about 20, maybe more than 20 elephants coming down to the water. It's great. It's a real gathering. So I looked it up a moment ago, and elephants are absolutely self-aware. They join just a few animals, dolphins, and some of the apes, humans, and magpies, and probably other birds in the same family, who can also recognize their reflections. So I don't know whether, a very clear reflection in the water, yes, but maybe this rippled reflection, not so much. But they certainly can recognize themselves. So I just saw the matriarch of this herd, and there's a tiny little baby there. How cute is that? It even looks a bit wobbly. Doesn't know what's going on. There's a sibling. So I saw the matriarch of this herd now just arriving. This is the herd which belongs to Alicia Keys, who's got the big keyhole-shaped hole in her ear. And this little baby, look at it sniffing around, learning. So these are probably all cousins, or one of them must be related to the other. But generally speaking, all the baby elephants are related to each other in this herd, I'm sure. Gizmo, you've asked how many elephants are in a herd. It varies. It varies completely. Some herds are very big, some are much smaller. It all depends on how much food is around and, the number of elephants in an area. But this, I'd say, is a fairly large herd, to be honest. It's a fairly decent-sized herd. It might be two families that have joined over this short period because it's not much food around and there's limited water. But I've seen herds, sometimes 50, 60 animals. I've even seen a group of about 200 elephants walking across a riverbed before, but that was almost certainly a number of herds that joined up. It will be basically a matriarch, her sisters, and maybe her grown daughters. So, there is a limited size. There is a size that sometimes a female, if she feels like she should be the matriarch and is under a lot of pressure or fighting a lot with the current matriarch, she might end up taking her family with her and starting a new herd. That doesn't happen too often, but it certainly does happen. They'll break away. Look at these two youngsters, almost a similar size and age probably. If they're both females, will form a very close and tight bond and will probably end up living their whole life together. It's wonderful. So you can see the one baby's just squeezed itself right in between its mother's legs, right on the left of the screen there. It's very cute how it's just squeezed in. It's not even drinking, I don't think. I think it's just sort of hiding from the sun there. Andrea, it is very cool how family-oriented these particular elephants are. Remember, the bull elephants will go off on their own for long periods of time, but the females stay very close, and they're very protective of each other. So, Andrea, it's really, really cool. I see a few impalas also starting to come down now, and some monkeys. There's a few geese around there. So you see all the animals start to come together when elephants are drinking, because they know, more or less, that it should be fairly safe from the large predators. And we know that lioness has been around, but we haven't seen her this morning. so we don't know where she is at the moment. Bittersweet, you're asking what would warrant an elephant being kicked out of a herd. Well, the young males, when they start to get a bit bigger, around their late teens, they start to become too big and they start being interested in reproducing with the other females, and they'll start to become quite aggressive. They'll be pushing the other females around, bullying the younger ones, and so the mothers usually push them out of the herd, and they'll spend a couple of years shadowing the herd before they eventually... This one is definitely going to face plant. Oh my word, that would be the funniest thing ever. You look like you're about to... Careful now. Uh-oh, 3 legs. Ooh, just made it. So Bittersweet, the young males get pushed out when they are old enough. This little one is not going anywhere for quite a number of years. It's too cute. Too cute, man. It's stuck inside a little elephant track now. Can't get out. And then, I don't know whether they're kicked out, but females that are pressuring to become the matriarch will often then leave of their own free will with their family, but it doesn't happen too often, only when there's a lot of pressure. See, there's a little bit of green vegetation in the cracks in this clay mud, which is just clinging on there, and these elephants are just reaching into it to get to some of that green material, those that are finishing drinking. Very desperate for whatever they can get. And there on the left of the screen, you can just see Alicia's drinking. She's the elephant that's facing us. You see her right there. So just to the right. Just to the right. And then that elephant facing us in the screen there. If you zoom in on that one, you'll see the ear that's ripped. The one just to the right of that on the opposite bank. Yeah. That's Alicia Keys. That's the elephant who we think is the matriarch of this group, because she's often the one who rumbles and everyone starts to listen to what she says, and then they move off all together. Pretty sure she's the matriarch, or at least one of the older, more experienced females in the group. Really cool to see her doing so well, looking after her family. You can see that rip in her ear there. That's how we can recognize her very easily. And she's also got an incredibly angular forehead. You can see it's flat on the top and then flat in front. So females often have these very sharply angled foreheads, whereas the males have a much rounder skull, and that's because they push each other and they fight with each other all the time, so they can have these bigger, rounder, stronger skulls for all the fighting that they do. The females don't fight, just protect their youngsters. That's the only reason they would ever really get aggressive. The rest of the time they're very calm. I'm just going to enjoy these elephants. They're going to start moving, I think, towards us, but we're just going to sit tight here and see what happens.
So we had to leave the meerkats, unfortunately. Just we had some couple of little tech issues. So we're on the vehicle, but what we're doing is we're doing like a shark patrol in this area where we've seen the African, well, we didn't see it, but where Wendy saw the African wildcat this morning. So we're just going slowly up and down here, hoping, it's a small chance, but hoping for a sighting of this wildcat. And you never know, they're so cryptically, with such cryptic animals that you can drive past them very easily, and that's why it's so important just to go very slowly. But we will get one at some point. We will get one. It's just a matter of time. And like I say, it's encouraging to see that there are sightings in the area that we've been covering and looking for them. So we are working the right areas at least. That's always a good starting point, though. BK says, we so badly want you to find one. Thank you, I appreciate that. But we'll do it. We'll do it. We will do it. Don't worry. Just as long as it takes, eh? like I think I've spoken about it before, but many years ago, someone once asked Gary Player about his with his golf. And they said, "What do you ascribe your luck on the short game to?" Because he's so good at it. And he says, "It's just funny. I find the harder I practice, the luckier I get." And that's exactly with this kind of thing. It's just the more you do it, the greater your chance.
So the elephants are just now leaving the waterhole, and you can see there's loads of them all in basically a line, and you can see the elephant pathway that's been created in this clay as the elephants leave the water and head out to find some decent feeding. But they still need to eat a lot. They are still need to eat plenty of food. It's dry, so they'll eat all day long, trying to make sure that they get as much food as possible. Big herd. Just now we had one of the tiny little babies was leading the herd. It looked very interesting. It was stopping, and all the other elephants stopped. There it is, there, just in the middle now. It's with the rest. This little thing just behind this other larger elephant was leading the whole group, and she stopped to, or I think it's a she stopped to eat some of the green vegetation, and then that was very cute. Oh, look at them. See, they're all moving up now. I don't know if you can see just how many. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is a big herd. And it looks like just one herd because they all left and went in the same direction. But you can see they're all heading up now into the vegetation. We'll see them again. They'll drink more or less once or maybe sometimes twice a day, which is fantastic. Goodbye, elephants. It was so nice to have you once again. You are always the best. Elephants are literally the best animals to watch. Well, from one of the very largest animals in the whole world, we're going to be sending over to Lauren with a tiny one.
Well, a small animal for sure. Maybe not the tiniest out here, but one of the smallest of the antelopes, steenbok. Now, this is one of the monogamous pair of steenboks that we have on quarantine, and they're very relaxed. Some steenboks will dart immediately as soon as they even hear your car, but the pair that we do have on quarantine are very, very relaxed. And steen, the word steen, is actually borrowed from Afrikaans, and it means a brick. So it's a brick bok. It doesn't have the same ring to it, does it? And it's basically referring to the colour, that sort of reddy brick colour. If you can imagine a red brick house, that's where the name originally comes from. But Steinbock has also been used. And that's slightly unfortunate and slightly off because that is the German name for the ibex. So it doesn't quite work. I think Steinbock definitely works for this cute little animal here. Very graceful, long, slender legs, slim bodies. Very hungry this morning, I think. And you can see that curvature of the spine. They have quite a unique skeleton in that immediately, within a split second, they can just bend that spine further down at the rear end and immediately be flat on the ground. That's one of their sort of forms of camouflage. Just immediately go on the ground. You're small enough to be completely looked over. You also blend into the background. They know to freeze rather than to flee. They will flee, but their main tactic is freeze. Moon, I agree, gorgeous, large almond-shaped eyes. The large ears and the large eyes tell you immediately that they're highly visual and they rely on their ears. It's a sign that they're diurnal. The large eyes, adapted for seeing during the day. You see how that back part of the body slopes down? Always ready to just bend down and be completely invisible. Steenboks can sometimes be confused with the oribi in the field, but of course they are different species. And oribi have much longer necks, and they're actually taller at the shoulder, with really dark black tails. Now, if Theo can just zoom out a little bit, we'll be able to see how well this individual just blends in. Not so easy to pick out, not like impala. And that's exactly what they're going for. So as my steenbokkie disappears, I think we're going to keep bumbling around quarantine.
Come on, come on. We've just found this male leopard on the impala kill that he's had for 2 days. I want to reverse back a little bit. See if we can see him lying on the branch. He's literally just as we went live, he's just moved off of his kill. And honestly, I just came by to just have a quick little look. I wasn't really expecting him to be here. But we've got a relatively good view of him through a very, very small little window. So we'll see if Owen's got it. But just look at the tree. I mean, it's so nice and shady. So there he is. We can literally just see his eye, but look at the light coming through. That dappled light is seriously pretty. And he seems to be so comfortable now. I would imagine that he probably hasn't moved much if he's still on the carcass. I mean, he might have gone to go and get something to drink, but then again, he doesn't really need to with all of the nutrients and the liquids that he's gotten from eating a full carcass like this. He might have just stayed here the whole night. And it's such a difficult tree. We're so lucky that it's right next to the road, because if he was lying in here and the tree was 20-30 meters into the bush, we would never ever have seen him. Look at it, it's insane. And we've just got that tiny, tiny little window where we can see him. Yeah, his eyes are really, really pretty. He's just put himself into a position where we can't see them, but that left one, look at that light catching it. It's amazing. I'm just going to creep back a little bit. We might have a few... no, my clutch isn't... We're not rolling backwards, so I'm going to start up and just go back a little bit. Not really. So, butterfly, it's actually quite a distinctive tree because it's so... it's like creates such a beautiful canopy of leaves. It's a tree called a Natal mahogany, and it's a bit unusual to see it all dead like this. They usually keep their leaves quite nicely throughout the year, but it's a Natal mahogany, and it's got very, very dark green leaves. I mean, if you look at the leaves right next to that leopard's face on the left, that's the usual color. And it's got if you were to chop it with a chainsaw, got this very, very deep red color to it. But this, I mean, I've never myself personally seen a leopard in this tree, but I've heard of lots and lots of sightings of people seeing leopards in this particular tree. So I'm very glad I get to see a leopard in this tree finally. And I got asked a question a few days ago about whether a leopard will return to the same tree over and over again. And I mean, they might on the odd occasion, but they usually don't. But this tree in particular tends to attract leopards, and this is probably the third or the fourth time that I've heard of this male, this individual, coming to this tree. And it's a tree that his mother would have taken him past several different times. We're right in the middle of her territory. With the light catching, you can even see a slight little bit of moisture on the edge of the nose. Very little white spot. He's got such a nice view of the river, and it seems like he's just peering down it, looking for any sign of movement.
So the leopard is peering down into the river, and we've got a very tall animal that will peer down to us in a moment. This is our very dark, tall and handsome giraffe that we've seen a few times sticking around here. You see his color is, I mean, he's in the shade, so it looks darker, but he's almost black in color. It's incredible. I've never seen a giraffe quite as dark as he is. And he is enjoying, again, a tambuti tree. We just seem to only see the giraffes eating tambutis. I really must do a bit of research and see, you know, whether there is some toxicological significance to why they might be eating these. Because there's other green stuff. You know, there are knobthorns still with leaves, and there's plenty of these, what they used to call acacias, in this particular drainage line. So the reason why it would be eating these tambutis, I have no idea. Very interesting though. I wonder, hold on one second, we've just got a vehicle that's about to pass by. Hello, John. Tall, dark, and handsome. All right. So, oh, that's a great question. Joseph has asked a very interesting question about whether giraffes ever eat meat, because they saw a giraffe eating a bone not so long ago. Well, that's interesting because no, they don't eat meat, right? Giraffes eat the bones, or at least nibble the bones, to get the special calcium that's in there. Because, of course, they're very tall, they've got a lot of bones in their body, and they need to keep them strong. If they lose the strength in their bones, they will not be able to function very well. So they nibble on those bones for the calcium. I've never seen one eating meat before. I don't think that they eat meat. They're very herbivorous in nature, browsers specifically. They just want the calcium. Although some animals have been seen to eat meat from time to time, things that are fairly omnivorous, like warthogs, for example, mostly eating vegetation. Oh, hidden giraffe. I don't know if there was ever a giraffe there. I'm pretty sure there wasn't. You guys were all imagining it. Another animal that often eats meat, or not necessarily meat, is something called a duiker. You've seen the common duiker before. It's an amazing animal, but in winter, at this time of year now, they have been recorded catching small or eating eggs from birds, also catching frogs and small lizards as well. They've got sharp hoofs, so they stamp down on them and they actually eat them to supplement their diet, which is something not very well documented, but it's definitely been seen before. And of course, warthogs will sometimes nibble at carcasses. We've actually seen records of them chasing cheetahs off their carcasses in order to get to some of that goodness, because they're omnivores. Most pigs are omnivores, so they can eat some of that stuff. It's very interesting. I've never seen it myself. Oh, another animal, a hippo. Now, they don't eat meat, but they have been recorded in drought times like this to go to a carcass of an animal that's either died near a waterhole or been killed by animals, and they'll eat the stomach content, which is very interesting. Imagine seeing a hippo eating the leftovers of a carcass, because the lions or leopard or whatever it might be would mostly eat the meat and ignore the stomach unless they were extremely hungry. But when there's when there's stomach content left over and the hippo's hungry, it might eat that. But in the meantime, we'll send you over to Dylan with his meerkats.
There's a bird of prey.
we got this little, in this massive landscape, and we're still looking for wildcat. That'll never stop. But we happen to spot a little group of our friends. There we go. This little group's just got out of bed. It is not one of our habituated groups, so we won't even try approach closer to this. But it is just nice to see them out. And interestingly, we come past this area almost every single morning on our little wildcat search. And this is the first time that we've actually seen this particular group over here. So it's about 1 kilometer, maybe 800 meters in a straight line from the rock stars. So there'll be no immediate threat to the others. I counted, there's actually 8 meerkats here, and there's 2 ground squirrels. So there's 2 Cape ground squirrels, kind of the center of the group off to the left. There's just 2 sitting at the back over there. Very, very difficult to see from this distance, and I am sitting with a pair of binoculars, which helps, so just trust me on that. And I don't know if you look really carefully, you can actually see that African wildcat just sitting behind them. Beautiful sighting. Put up your hand if you can see the African wildcat. There we go, thank you. I wish. One day when I'm big, one day when I'm big. But I love that opening wide angle shot that Davy had of that. It just really gives you a sense of the vastness of these areas that these little animals are inhabiting. I mean, look at that. That's just, and you're a little colony of meerkats, you weigh a couple of 100 grams, and this is what you got to move around in forage and look for, make sure you don't get eaten by predators. It's pretty cool. But we are, like I mentioned, we are slapping in that African wildcat's territory now. Sophie's asked that. That's a really fun question that Sophie's asked. So the question that Sophie's asked is, can meerkats actually walk about like that? Or do they just stand on their hind legs like that? So no, they won't walk around like that. They can't do it. They've got a really poor design for upright, bipedal movement. So when they're actually moving, they'll just go down on all fours and forage like that. But we do have an animal that, interestingly, that we've seen before on our safaris that does walk on 2 legs most of the time. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but if anyone's got any guesses, and you can go back a couple of weeks, and you just think about it. There's a really interesting animal that walks on 2 legs that we've seen here, and it wasn't Gendre, it's not Davy, and it's not myself. If you got any guesses, you can ponder it a little bit. He's got a little African pygmy falcon sitting on the tree on the tree on the right here as well. I don't know if you can see that one. I'm just going to show you this. Some viewer says it's a pangolin. Yes, that was brilliant. That was way faster than I thought anyone would get it. So good job. Yep. Mrs. Viewer says, Mrs. Zero, sorry, I'm so deaf. Well, I need to go for a hearing tester. But yeah, Mrs. Zero says, pangolin, good job, very good job.
Weren't able to make it, unfortunately. How are you doing? Well, we've just stopped with another little group of elephants here. This young bull has been a little bit obstropulous, mock charging us a bit and strutting his stuff, but he seems to have relaxed now. I say it's been a elephant-filled morning. Lots of different splinter groups and fragments. Oh, lovely. They really are enjoying the last of green grass. Sean, you've asked, how do elephants pick a leader of their pack? So an elephant herd is dominated by a matriarch. It's a matriarchal society. And it's generally... There's Lauren just came around the corner to say hello. Hello, Lauren. They're also enjoying the elephants. Sean, in matriarchal society, it's generally genetically passed down, so it'll be grandmother to daughter. It appears from the research we have done, or at least the books will tell you, a genetic hand down. And the matriarch is often quite obvious. You can kind of tell who she is. Normally the largest female in the group, quite dominant, always the first one to come and investigate a potential threat. And she knows the routes and the paths of the bush, where the water lies, where the best feeding grounds are, and she teaches her offspring those tricks of the bush, so to say. As these elephants disappear into the thickness, let's send you over to Ngala, who have a leopard.
And so this male literally hasn't moved, and he's just literally falling asleep and reacting to noises and opening his eyes every now and again. But one thing that we've been pretty entertained by in the last couple of minutes is a small little bird that's probably less than 2.5 meters away from our vehicle. And we'll show you it right now. So there he is. And so it's super close to us. And this is a bird that I think quite a few people might get confused by. It's black overall, and some might think that it's a fork-tailed drongo, but it doesn't really have a very deep fork in the tail. And then as it turns, look, not a very sharp bill and no red eye. So it's called a southern black flycatcher. And he is so close to us, it's insane. I mean, I don't think I've ever really been this close to a southern black flycatcher. The detail that we get to see is amazing. So, I mean, it's overall black, but every now and again, as it turns, we sometimes get this royal blue color on the back of the head and the neck. It's amazing to see it so close like this. Now we're challenging Owen. He has to try and find the leopard again. Well done. You did really well there. He's obviously experienced. This dappled light is really quite helpful because, I mean, as soon as it shines on that very bright patch of shoulder, it's something that we can see quite nicely. But if he was completely in the shade, we would have quite a tough time finding him. And now what's really nice is the breeze is starting to pick up. So Heidi, this male is quite small for his age, yes. I've seen males that are almost, I guess, like 1.5 times his size at the same age. And I think it's got to do with a number of things. His mother was a very, very small leopardess, and so that gene was probably passed on. But when she died, I mean, he was just under a year old. And so, I mean, it probably stunted the development and the growth because he wasn't feeding as regularly and wasn't feeding on large things like the mother would usually to provide for him. And so he was just going by surviving on the smallest of things. Has he just moved? Oh, he has. That's cool. I wonder if he's going to return to the carcass, or maybe he even comes down. So let me see. I'm going to move forward. Now, if you have to constantly feed on things like mongooses and little vulture chicks, rather than feeding on nice big healthy portions of impala, I'm sure that limits your growth ability. So he is quite a lot smaller. But he's cleaning himself now. So we'll see what he decides to do. If he decides to climb down the tree and rest in the shade, or if he hops across this nice little open V to continue on feeding. But he's giving himself a really nice groom at the moment. Consulting detective, that pink nose really does stand out. Just another color to add to the beauty of this leopard's face. I mean, the golden eyes, the gold around, the black, the white, the pinks, it all just complements each other so well. Okay, he's moving across, and it's just, I mean, they make it look so effortless. Yeah, there we go. Quick little hop across, so he is going back to the carcass. No, he's not. He's coming down. Oh, this is the best view we've had so far. Oh, he's looking straight at us now. And down he goes. That's a cool shot of the tail disappearing. Alright, he's down. He's just landed on the ground. And see how he's decided to jump down into the shade where he will remain hidden. A little bit better than being out in the sunlight. Also cooler, I guess. It looks like he's coming down to the river. Okay, let's see what he does from here. This might be the last time that he spends at this carcass. I haven't seen it, but it looks like, I mean, I would imagine it's pretty much gone. Yeah, alright, he's going to pop his head down. I'm just going to roll all the way back. And we might see him crossing. Being a classic leopard and trying to trick us. Where's he gone? He might have even just gone to lay up in the shade. Critter freak. There's nothing more graceful than watching a leopard climb down or up a tree, actually. And nothing harder than spotting a leopard moving through such dense brush like this. So I hope we get one last view. We limited for time to show you him one last time, but it has definitely been a wonderful day. And this morning has started off in the best way possible, from those lions calling, the lions in the mist, to ending off with this fantastic leopard. And remember, we'll be here at 3 o'clock this afternoon on SABC or on YouTube. It's certainly been a wonderful morning, and we can't wait to show you what Ngala else is left to show you.